Welcome to Lead Different.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different?
Welcome to Lead Different, podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. I am so excited to bring our guest to you today. Our guest is Laura Leanne Williams, who is the founder and creative director of Laura Leanne Creative Partners. She has become a recognized leader in the Chicago creative community and beyond. She is a recipient of the 2021 Better Business Bureau Firestarter Award, and she was honored recently by Design Rush as one of Illinois' top branding agencies. Laura Leanne has built a reputation for crafting brands that connect deeply with audiences and drive measurable growth since 2019. As a strategic, experiential creative director, Laura Leanne helps founders and leadership teams translate vision into cohesive brand systems that build trust and loyalty. Her holistic approach blends design, storytelling, and strategy to create brands with heart and purpose, ensuring they're not only seen, but genuinely felt across every touch point. So, without any further ado, let me welcome our good friend, Laura Leanne Williams. How are you, Laura Leanne?
I'm good, Dan. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being on. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, Laura Leanne. I'll give you guys, those of you that are listening, I'll give you guys a little bit of background on how I met Laura Leanne. I think we met, was it in I think it was a Holy Collisions event, probably on Scent, which is an organization for Catholic business leaders that spans across the country. We've got some members in New Mexico. I'm sure we don't have as many members as Illinois has because it's such a much bigger, more populous state. But I got a chance to meet Laura Leanne and hear a little bit about what she does. And I said, you know, I would love to have you on the Lead Different podcast, and let's talk about what it means to lead different in this space. So Laura Leanne, what does it mean to you to lead different?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan. For me, it reminds me that, you know, even through some small acts, right, of kindness, and really taking care of the people you work with, both personally and professionally, that's still, you know, is equivalent to being a leader. And for me, I realized that also being a leader maybe doesn't always show up in the forms of, you know, popularity or, you know, being top, having the top followers on social media, but it's really truly leading with your values. And so that's what I've really learned about leadership throughout these couple of years running my own creative firm and getting to meet so many professionals and leaders along the way. So it's the values.
That's fantastic. I'm glad you brought up values. So what, you know, it's interesting as I speak to different leaders across the country and across the world. I have an interview with a leader out of South Korea that's living in Korea coming up later this week. And I can't wait to talk to him. He's a Marshall Goldsmith certified coach and a former partner in the business. And I can't wait to talk to him. What does it mean to you, or how has it changed your business to lead with your values? And give me some of the what are the core values that Laura Leanne just puts out there when you're dealing with clients for the first time and you want them to know, hey, this is what you're going to get?
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, I'm, you know, number one, I'm looking for someone who's trustworthy, honest, right, and has that integrity. I'm also looking for that kind of unapologetic, like being you. And I don't want to say authentic because I know it's overused, but truly showing up genuinely, right? I want you to be comfortable with who you are, and I want you to own it, right? And be comfortable in that way. And then, it would be great also if you had some type of faith. It doesn't have to be Catholic like myself by any means, but it is nice knowing and working with others who realize that there's a little more than just themselves, right? There's this higher being, and that we're all working and striving towards that in our own way.
I like that. So what does that mean? So I love that you brought up the faith, because as we mentioned earlier, we met through a Catholic networking group. But what are the non-negotiables when it comes to faith? I have my own, but people know mine, and I'll probably put out a video on what mine are. But what are your non-negotiables when it comes to dealing with a person who is of a different faith or of no faith at all, or that shares your faith? Even those, I think sometimes we run into some different ideologies within our own faith, right?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. I really like to focus on, first of all, always asking the other person, what are their thoughts? What are their views? And not that I'm trying to tailor my answer to make them super comfortable or anything and only, sway in the way that they want me to, but I want to give other people that option to have that say and declare, how they feel. It doesn't have to be anything politically related even, but just I want people to know that I'm first seeking to understand. I'm not going to hop in and immediately say what I am and what I do and how I feel. I want to hear from them first and then get a better understanding of where they're coming from. And then I want to give myself that chance to put my perspective, try to see it from their lens, right? Or put myself in their shoes. And then I'll open up and say, my experience and maybe why I sit on a certain side or lean a certain way, because I think that allows for an open dialogue. And it's not just here's what I think, here's what you think, but then you have almost kind of like storytelling. You just have a better understanding of where that person's genuinely coming from, right? Is it something that happened to them when they were younger that makes them, where they are today? We have so many different fragments and pieces of our story that I think, right, it's hard to get all of that in one sitting and to understand, well, that's why they lean this way. So
right.
For me, I guess I'm seeking to understand first.
I really like that approach. I've been in sales my entire career, led sales organization at a really high level. And I have always found that my best salespeople asked a lot of questions. They didn't answer a lot of questions. They asked a lot of questions, and then they listened and took notes, and were able to craft their sales presentation to the client's needs, because the more you listen, the more the client will tell you what they need. So, and I think that goes really well along with what, as I was reading your introduction, you talked about, I talked about your holistic approach that blends design, storytelling, and strategy to create brands with heart and purpose. And I imagine learning a person's faith history has something to do with that holistic approach. Tell us, so you mentioned storytelling. How do you blend design, storytelling, and strategy to create a brand?
Yeah, I'm going to go back even to what we were talking about earlier about the values. And so that's one of the first things I discuss with, clients, whether they're just starting a business or they're, doing a brand refresh. I'm always going to ask the founders in the head C-suite, what are the values, right? It's not just words plastered on a wall or on a website. How are we showing up and actually living that out? And so I want to make sure that that's truly felt through every touch point. You've got your inserts that is given to your sales team. You've even got when you go to a trade show, right? Mm-hmm. How is that showing up truly, genuinely in person? And if we're not being intentional about how those values are showing up, maybe it's time we take a step back and just go back to the drawing board, right? And that's okay, because right. I totally get it. We're all evolving. We're learning so much, we're growing. And so I don't want people to feel like they have to keep the same exact, 3 values from, 70 years ago, because maybe it's been passed out through other generations in different hands. But it also doesn't mean that you're, leaving what you've had in the tradition. So it's balancing that, honoring the legacy and tradition, but also being open to evolving with the times.
So honoring the legacy and tradition while being open to to what's new, right? So
Yeah.
that's a great probably challenge that a lot of us have.
Mhm.
I work with a lot of companies who are in transition. For some reason, I'm getting that right now. I tend to work with younger CEOs and founders, but recently I've been working with some seasoned CEOs who are in the process of transitioning their business to the next generation.
Yep.
So that does combine, so when you've got a boomer, or an older Gen X that is handing
Yep.
off the business to probably a Gen Z or or a millennial, they see the world differently, right? We've
Yes.
experienced the world differently. Even we experience COVID differently. Everything.
Yeah.
Plus, we have different. I remember 9/11. I was an adult during 9/11. Gen Z
Yeah.
and Gen Alpha, who's coming up, they have no idea. That's history book stuff for them, right? Or
Yeah.
they were born, right
Yeah.
on or around those dates. So the way we look at things is going to be different. So one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about is your YOS, because you and I, so for those of you that are longtime listeners of the Lead Different podcast, you know that everything we do at Why Not Leadership starts with the YOS discovery. So every executive I work with, every company that I take through a team optimization workshop, they go through the YOS discovery. Yours came back, Laura, and this is fantastic for what you do, for being a creative. I think it's such a gift. So your why came back as right way. Your how came back as make sense, and your what is trust. And it's so interesting because as I asked you about the values, you talked about trust, being authentic, and then faith. The right way didn't really come out there, but definitely the trust comes out there. Being
Mhm.
authentic, I think you can't trust people if they're not authentic, and you have to be yourself. How did that feel to you? We went through, I know we sent you the assessment, and then we went through a coaching session with you to go through your results. How did it feel initially, and how does it feel now that you've sat with it for a while?
Yeah, no, it felt really good. I wasn't shocked by my results. I knew I was definitely a right way person. I like having procedures. I like having steps. I like knowing that I am going in the right order because to me that almost connects back to right the building trust. And
Right,
I'm also leveraging right too that it's got to make sense. So for
right,
me, if I don't have the process and the steps, I want to make sure that my clients fully understand we're doing it this way, but that's going to lead to those results that you want. And when you're
right,
consistent about actually being intentional or following the flow or the steps, that's leading to those results that you want. So I see how they're all intertwined and connected and they work together. And now having sat down with it for a couple of weeks since we've done that, I see how I definitely fit in those three categories, even more so. Like, and it makes sense, and I like it. I'm fully embracing it.
I love that. One of the things that clients might hesitate, and it's always, depending on what industry you're in. You've done work in medical, you've done work in the hospitality industry. I know if I'm a business owner and I'm turning over my branding to someone, and that when you get these creatives, they're going to come in and they're going to throw stuff at you. You don't know what's coming, right? Because they're going to be a lot more creative than we are. That's why we're hiring them. But to have somebody who's a creative person who runs a creative agency and helps us develop brands, who's going to come in with a system and a process, who's going to help us understand it by helping us make sense of it, and who is ultimately going to deliver a result we can trust, that's a different approach. And I love that as for me, coming in, I like and I'm a challenger. Those of you who listen to the podcast, so I'm an out of the box, don't follow the rules kind of thinker. And so I am that guy that you watch out for because who knows what will come out of my mouth or what I will actually put out. But having someone like you, Laura Leanne, who is very structured, is going to give us a system and a process and take us through it in an ordered manner, is almost calming to me as
Yeah.
the CEO founder looking for that rebrand. And I am so much looking forward to partnering with you. And I know I have a few clients that I want to send your way. They're in different
Mhm.
stages in their development, but as soon as they're ready, we're going to send them your way. And that's exactly how I think I will present you. It's she is going to do things the right way. She's going to take you through a process and a system that's guaranteed to give you good results, or not. We don't always say guarantee, but that's proven to give you results, right? It's been proven in the past. So we think you're going to get good results. She's going to help you a bit, right? It's not going to be something that you're going to be confused about. And she's going to build trust with you so that you feel comfortable with the brand that Laura Leanne Creative Partners is going to create for you. Is it okay if I introduce you that way?
Yeah, no, that's great, Dan. And I was going to say too, you're also a part of that story as well, because in that process, I want to be able to send people to you to get their YOS done.
Right.
And because I want them to realize I have structure, I have ways of doing things, but I know sometimes it means maybe you don't start with me. And I'm very honest with people. Maybe, you know what, we're going to take a sidestep and you're going to get this done because it's actually going to lead to something even better when you do come to me, right? And again, I'm going back to my right way and having systems. But as much as I'm a creative, I definitely am a nerd when it comes to the operations, because I love building creative systems. And it doesn't have to sound so, you know, oh, she's just a unique creative who's really out there. I love doing both. And I think there is that kind of harmony that you need to have. And that's what makes us different at Laura Leanne Creative Partners. We're really harmonizing what do you need, but we're balancing out, okay, sometimes it's a little more creative and it's structure, but we're going to give you both either way, because they can't work without each other. It can't be siloed.
You know, as you brought that up, there's a side of you that probably people wouldn't expect because you're a right way person, and we don't normally expect this. One of the things one of my coaches and mentors talks about is right way people do things the right way. They're always, you know, very, very systems oriented, but every once in a while they do something crazy. They need that outlet, right? Well, one of the things that you've done that's really interesting that I'd love for you to share with our audience is you're a digital nomad. You and your husband travel. Tell us about what made you choose that lifestyle. You left the Windy City, and are you in an RV, or do you guys rent an Airbnb? How is it that you're dealing with this digital nomad lifestyle that you guys have chosen?
That's a great question. So yeah, we kicked off our journey just over a year ago, and we actually kicked it off with the Ascent Ventures conference last year. So, you know, it was really kind of funny. It felt like, in a way, it was our weird little digital nomad pilgrimage, really just getting into minimalism and simplifying. My husband and I both run our own companies, and we said, you know, we do everything remote and digital, you know, but we also realized, Dan, that, you know, when you do the same thing over and over again, that kind of consistency or being comfortable kind of leads to complacency. And if we're not doing something different, are we growing? Are we learning? And I think Dirk and I, my husband, we just needed to kind of exercise, we say, different muscles of that. So we got rid of everything. We had an 1,800 square foot townhome, and we sold everything. And now we put everything into a small 80 square foot storage unit, memory items only, no furniture. And then what we do is we actually do Airbnbs 1 month at a time, and we put everything in our 3-row SUV. So we're not going around in a big RV or anything, no trailer. And we said, you know what, almost smaller the better, because then you're going to try to find ways to fit things in. But for us, it was just, we needed something different. And our dog Boomer came along with us because he's part of the family. Yeah.
So Boomer, what kind of dog is Boomer? We got to hear about Boomer.
Oh yeah, Boomer is a small Woodle. So it's a Wheaton Terrier Poodle. So they call him a Woodle.
A Woodle, nice. I love how people you could probably get in trouble with some of these dog names if you mix them up wrong, right? So that's a Woodle, I love terriers. We have a terrier. We had one time had four dogs in our house, ranging all the way from a Great Pyrenees all the way down to a small black terrier with a cattle dog and a golden retriever in between. And unfortunately they've gotten old, and so we're down to one dog, and I kind of like having the one little dog, but we're definitely non-minimalist, Laura. Laura Leanne, when you and your husband come through Albuquerque, you'll have to see that. We'll have to find you a good deal on an Airbnb so you can come and do the tour of Albuquerque. You're in New York right now, right?
We're in upstate New York, but we're definitely coming back to you in Albuquerque because we did last year the hot air balloon fiesta. And that
Yes.
was just one of those magical places. We both saw it in photos and we're like, that's on the bucket list. And I think that's what's so beautiful too about the Nomad. It's not just simplifying, it's not just decluttering, but it's also a mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
And it also allowed us, we kept saying, as a husband and wife, we're like, there's those things you want to snowboard in Colorado. My husband never did that, and he's an avid snowboarder. It was all those things, and we're like, oh my gosh, we still haven't done anything. And so that gave us the opportunity as a couple to grow in our faith, to grow in our relationship with each other. And I think we just put so much into our businesses like every other person does. And we know it's, blood, sweat, and tears, but we said, we got to learn to also, live a little bit.
Right.
And so, but, Albuquerque was amazing. So we'll definitely be going back. We said it was like being in a Microsoft screensaver. The hot air balloons are rising up next to you. You can hear the fans, smell the flame, and they're just rising up. And you're so excited to get up at 4 a.m. to see this,
Yeah, it's amazing.
Cool.
We are there every year. My daughter, our youngest daughter, who is 13, has been there for, she's just turned 14. So she's been there every year, including the year right before she was born. She was born on October 30th. So she went in the womb between the first and second weekend of October. So she claims that she's been there 16 years, even though she's only 15. I love that the way you guys have found a down. I'm reading a book and I'm sharing it with everybody. Matthew Kelly, Slowing Down to the Speed of Joy. One of my office mates here gave that to me and I read through it. Now I'm giving it out to everybody I can. I bought 10 copies and I'm probably going to have to order another 10 copies, but that's real. A lot of it. And towards the end, he talks about essentialism. What do you really need? How much is enough? And he tells the story of a millionaire author. He's at a mixer, right? And he's made millions from his book, and a multi-billionaire comes in, and his host says, that guy made more money selling one company than you made on all the books you've ever sold. And the author says, yes, but I have one thing he doesn't. And the guy says, oh yeah, what is that? And he says, enough. And I love the concept of enough because I think as driven entrepreneurs, as people who are trying to make our mark in the world and make a difference, there's also a part of you that has to say, okay, what's enough? And I think now tell me your husband's name again, Laura Leanne.
Yeah, Dirk. D-I-R-K.
All right, you and Dirk had kind of figured out what's essential, right? What is it? Yes. What are the essential things that you need? And you find that you don't, the less you have, the less you worry. What's one lesson you've learned from your nomad lifestyle that you would share with somebody who's thinking of doing it? What's one thing they can do to get prepared?
That's such a hard question. You don't know how many people, Dan, have been sent to us just to almost interview us just for that, because they're like, I've heard about it, I've read about it, but I don't know. And do I make the jump? And what happens? And they're like, I've never met anyone that actually has done it. Like, you read about it in blogs and YouTube channels. But the first thing I say to people, I guess one of my top, kind of tips would be, it's just when you're removing everything from your home physically, you start doing that mentally. And it feels so refreshing because you have to almost take an inventory of everything you've owned, because you have to clean out the house. You can't leave anything there. But it makes you want to translate that to what you do mentally, even how you're showing up personally and professionally in work. Do I really need this many options of shirts? Do I really need this many options of platters? And you're talking to someone who's hosted a lot of parties. Dirk and I were the hospitality power couple. I don't know, we were given that name from our friends. We were the ones that did the game nights, the dinners, parties, all of that. And we did all the Christmas parties and stuff. So it was really hard because we also felt like, are we losing that identity of kind of our label of, but you know what? We said, wait, you can still be hospitable on the road, right? So we do that now, and we actually host our friends, and they'll come out to us if we have an Airbnb with an extra room. People have come out and visit us in Colorado, and we did snowboarding with friends. And now we're really looking at how it's so nice, like the dynamic changes, right? We always used to do dinners in Chicago or whatnot, and now we see our friends out on the road. And we actually leveraged our Botanic Gardens membership, and I learned there's reciprocal borrowing to like 300 other locations. So it made us too, Dan, think outside of the box. It's really cool in different ways.
I love that a right way person is talking about stepping out of the box. And so cool that you did that. I think the biggest thing that you're sharing, and I think it's very important, is courage. You just have to find you and Dirk finally said, you know what, we're going to do it. And then you have the other thing we talked about. I think you have to have faith that things will work out, right? And they may not work out exactly the way you wanted, but they're going to work out, and the right thing is going to happen, or the outcome that's supposed to happen will happen. But you believed in it, and then you went all in, and then you went ahead and did it. So congratulations to both you and Dirk for going all in on that. I think it's fantastic. Let's talk about you a little bit more, because I want to hear, you know, as we started the show, we talk about how we lead different. So what's different about you today? How is your leadership look different today than it was even 5 years ago? What have you learned in the last 5 years? And it's been a pretty interesting 5 years. You know, let's include COVID in that. So how are you different today than you were 5 years ago?
Yeah, well, I think it's also really unique because, Dan, I started my company in May of 2019, and I didn't obviously know what was around the corner. So in the same year of 2019, I'm planning our wedding. We got married in the fall in September of 2019, but I also ran a business. And so all of those things combined, plus, yes, the pandemic was around the corner. I think it's funny, like Dirk and I don't even really know what would be different in our businesses because we never really had the chance. It went pretty quickly into a pandemic. Things got just very different, right? But kind of, you know, leading into that, I think leadership for me, it really grew because I was a solopreneur. I also wanted to prove it to myself that it was work. And then I actually ended up hiring my husband, Dirk, about 2.5 years in. So that was leadership in various ways when you're looking at it as a professional business owner, but then you're also truly bringing in your personal life when you're hiring your spouse. That's a whole nother unique moment. But, you know, then it also shifted as Dirk helped me grow with the operations, and he came in and took that off my plate, and I just was doing 80-hour weeks. So I knew we had to have a team and scale. And so we built a team of creatives that I have now. And we did do the full-time employee thing as well too. So I had to step up and be a leader in that way. And it kept growing. And it was interesting kind of watching the steps as I kind of climbed up. And then I'm at this point now that I have a great team, and Dirk now runs his own company with Telltale's operations, doing literally what he did for me, but now for other businesses and running their operations, everything from ops across all of those different departments. But I'm glad that he can give his God-given talents now to someone else. So I think it's unique to watch my leadership start from just being a leader for myself and almost for my clients. And now it's translated into having full-time employees, but now I'm down to just, you know, I have all 1099 contractors because I wanted it to be flexible. I wanted actually it to evolve. And even though it's funny, right, it goes with my right way personality of I thought I had to do it that way. I thought it had to be full-time. Oh, no, it doesn't have to be. And I like pairing, you know, my designers, you know, creativity with the right accounts. And I want everyone to feel like it's a win-win on both sides. And that, you know, that's being open to that and flexible. But I think that's where my leadership has grown, and also learning to embrace that change and kind of surrendering, almost going back to God, right? Like I do the surrender novena daily for many reasons.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, you know what? That's a great, glad you brought that up. What's part of your daily routine? What grounds you? You know, people talk about that morning routine, what's important, and share what, you know, what you feel comfortable sharing. But you mentioned you do that surrender novena every day, and that's important. And there's certain things that I do that I know that if I don't do those, my day doesn't even start right. Even if even like I'm going to be a little personal here. Last night, my wife and daughter and I did not end the night on a good note, but I couldn't wait till this morning to get into my routine and do my prayers and just really sit with God and hear, okay, you know what? Yesterday's over. Today's a new day. What was the part that you played in it, and how can you make it right? Right. So, start with accountability for me. But what's in your morning routine that you say, you know what, that helps me get my day started on the right way? And you can tell us about your faith portion of it, your fitness portion of it. What is it that gets Laura Leanne off on the right foot every day?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's unique too, Dan, because I've seen that evolve and change, and adding even more prayer into my life. And I think you got to start somewhere, right? And I used to kind of do the very basic things of prayer and very simple, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I've known how I wanted to almost beef up my own prayer life in the morning and even in the night before I go to bed. So it's been neat that Dirk and I also are doing that together. So I really like that we're ending and starting the day together as a couple in prayer. So in the beginning, I'm always getting up, I'm walking the dog, and then I go right into morning prayer. And we use the Hallow app. So that's been super helpful because, again, going back to Right Way, I'd like to have my process, and you can set your routine and everything, Dan, and it times it out. So I have my order, and then they play.
You cannot get away from your Right Way, right?
That's right. It's like a playlist. So we have our morning prayer, we have our morning readings and scripture, and then we go into that surrender novena. Like that's the last part of our morning prayer, because I like it. It kind of sends me off into that mindset of like, here we go. Like we're just gonna take on the day the best we can, to a certain degree, but you are gonna have to let go because you make a lot of decisions every day. And then for the end at night, before we go to bed, my husband and I, we've been doing the rosary together every night. And that's been really helpful.
Excellent.
Because I don't know about you, Dan, but I'm always thinking for my clients, and we're always like thinking, even if we're not at the computer, and I need something that like stops me and calms me down.
Yeah.
Because I'm just go mentally up here. And
Right.
I need to relax. It's like meditation. I love that you're obviously holding the rosary beads. Like there's a lot of different elements that go into that. And they even have a visual rosary now too on Hallow, which is nice. So if you also want the imagery, and it shows you the beads and like making sure you're on, and again, the right way. I'm like, okay, I don't want to be a bead behind.
Right? You're making sure you're doing 10 Marys, and
right.
you're in between prayers, and you're doing the right mysteries. I can't tell you how many times I've started doing, and I'm on the wrong day for my mysteries, and I'm like, oh darn. Then I go back and start over because I want to make sure I do it right. So there's a little bit of that in me too. Hey, you know what? You talked earlier about how you lead different. Tell me about something you do now as a leader. And by the way, before let's not just forget about that. Thank you for sharing your morning and closing routine. I think that's really helpful for everybody. But I wanted to go back when you talked about how you lead different. What's something you do now as a leader that you never would have imagined doing before?
Well, I think it would be, one of them would be probably joining Scent Ventures and being very intentional about bringing my professional work life together with my personal faith life, right? And I think you don't know, with the whole separation of church and state in that kind of sense, where is that gray area, where is that line? I've really gotten to the point in my career of like, I want to work with people who want to show up intentionally, both personally, professionally, and including their faith, whatever that may be. You don't have to be Catholic, but I really like that. And for me, I think that was also almost taking that leap of faith, because I think for me, I was a little nervous. Am I allowed to declare that? Am I allowed to join groups like that? Is that setting me apart in a bad way, right? And so all of those thoughts get rushed through at least my head. I've just embraced it. Because when you're new in the beginning, you want to prove yourself, and you're just trying to get someone to believe in you. And it's almost scary to like say everything that you represent and stand for. But when you've had a couple of years under your belt, and we're going on over 6 years, it feels really nice to be able to take leadership again at a different level. It's just different. You know so much more than you did the year before. And when you look at all the 6 years, it's like, I'm allowed to step into this and it's okay. And it led me to meeting people like you, Dan. Like, there's all these good things, but it does happen, right, in good time. So as much as I feel guilty, why didn't I join sooner? Part of me is also like, well, you know what? God had a plan. I just didn't know it. And I'm, again, here to surrender and embrace it. But I shouldn't feel guilty about, oh, why didn't I do it sooner?
Yeah, no, that's, one of the things that's fantastic. That's a great answer. I really appreciate hearing that. And one of the things we talk about at Why Not Leadership, and when I'm working with clients, we're working on messaging, even with you, when we're going through your YOS, the fact that you're going to bring systems and processes, you're going to help make sense of things, and you're going to build trust. One of the things I tell people all the time, when you tell people what you believe, you're going to attract people who believe what you believe. But one of the other things that is also going to happen is you're going to repel people who don't believe what you believe. And I think that just makes life easier, right? If you don't believe what I believe and you don't want to work with me, or you're going to have a problem with some of the things that I believe in, I'm glad to repel you and not even have to have an initial conversation with, because that's a waste of time. We have limited time, right? As you talked about, we're busy from the time we wake up until the time we start our evening prayers. From the time we finish our morning prayers to the start our evening prayers, we are busy, and there's only a limited amount of time that we have to dedicate to that which we do. Why spend it on people who are not a fit? And so, you mentioned, I think we had talked about letting people go who are not the right fit, either the right person in the right seat, and doing that just not only with the employees, but even with friends. That's a hard thing to do sometimes, because there are people we just become comfortable with, whether at work or in our relationships. We're like, they've always come to my parties, or they've always been in that seat for the company. They've always done that. Who is going to do it if they're not here? Can you share, how do you go about letting go of the wrong people and moving on, and then maybe a success story where you let go of someone and someone else came in and took their place and they did a fantastic job, maybe somebody you have on the team now?
Yeah, wow. I'm really glad we're talking about this, because I want to real quick circle back to what you were saying about, repelling the wrong people. And I want to be careful with that, because there have definitely been unique requests that I've gotten on my website when in my younger years that were definitely during the time of the pandemic, that were not like really appropriate. It wasn't even about faith. It was just the t-shirt design they wanted me to do. They clearly didn't do their research on me, because it was not very nice towards the Chinese race, but he clearly didn't look at my picture of my profile, which tells me, right, it says a lot about me, but I'm only touching on that, Dan, because I want to show people too, yes, maybe I'm not the right fit for you, but I like to think that God's also working through me in a nice way to also remind some people to just take a moment, step back, and think differently about what just happened. And so, yes, I'm not saying I want to be a victim or target of anything that's inappropriate or against another race, but I like to think that God's also trying to have me be a nice reminder to those people of like, hey, I nicely told that individual, I'm not sure if you did any research of me on my website, but I actually am Chinese and I don't feel comfortable doing that design on that shirt. But I like to do it respectfully, but also remind people, I think that there's just ways that, they need to almost nicely self-analyze themselves. Is that something you really want to put out into the world? Maybe they did. Maybe they went to another designer, but I like to think I'm doing my little tiny part of repelling it because it doesn't fit my values, but also maybe that gives them a moment to just.
Yeah, no, that's courageous. I think it's especially in entrepreneurship, we get into a mode where, gosh, any business is business, right? We want business, but also being able to say, you know what, that doesn't fit. And let me tell you why, and being kind and being able to say it in a kind and a generous way that the person can receive it. And and not be hurt, but actually, just as you said, maybe think about it a little bit and say, huh,
Yeah.
is that really something that needs to go out into the world? What's the benefit to society? What's the benefit that putting something like that out is going to have on people like Laura Leanne, someone who I've gotten to know through this small
Yeah.
partnership? Do I want to say something mean and unkind? But let's go back to that, because we talked about
Yes.
that too in the pre-show. Healthy no's, setting boundaries. And we've all come from that. I'm a contributor, so my why is contribute. I constantly deal with, how do I say no nicely? So how have you developed the ability to say healthy no's so that you don't feel bad about saying no, but that giving you the space and the room to say heck yes to some bigger projects, better projects? Tell us about that evolution. How did you learn to say no?
Yeah, and I don't want you to think I didn't want to answer your other question too, so I'll try to answer it, all of these little ones. But
Yeah,
so
go for it.
yeah, you were talking about, also how do you make sure you have the right people in your life, that
Right.
too. And I think it perfectly pairs with the healthy nose. And I would joke with people, be a digital nomad even for a month, maybe a couple months, see who shows up in your life and who wants to really be there. And for
Right.
Dirk and I, personally and professionally, that was very, very clear. Whether it was good, bad, or neutral, we
Right.
really saw where people stood on kind of what sideline, or that line was definitely drawn in the sand. There were definitely some people who really disappointed us, and there's definitely some people who really just outshined, and like, wow, we didn't even know that our relationship was at that level. So that was really eye-opening and healthy to physically remove ourselves, because that
Mm,
showed you who was going to fight for you to even
right.
just keep in touch with you. And I have certain people I check in with weekly and monthly. And again, going back to my right way, Dan, I'm the one that has the Google Calendar, and
Yep.
it's repeated every month because we all get busy. But if it doesn't make it on that calendar, we both know that everyone's going in different directions. So I think certain friends, certain people, you can, and have the calendar invite. But
Yeah.
the healthy no's then led us to making so much better yeses, because we saw what was happening, right? When we
Yeah.
removed ourselves from the picture, literally from the scene. And we're like,
Yeah.
wow, they treat you differently. Oh, wow, they treat you maybe the same or differently
Right.
when you're not physically there in the state of Illinois. And it really showed some friendships. And it's okay, because Dirk and I said it's like seasons, right? There's a chapter and a time, and maybe we've outgrown that friendship and we're just kind of moving in this direction, and maybe they don't want to grow, whatever it may be, and that's okay. We respect what they want to do.
Yeah, no, that's that. Thank you. And thank you for keeping me accountable. I know that I knew you would, because there was a question that we kind of left hanging out there and you brought it around. We're not going to let that just get lost out there. So we really appreciate that. So tell me about this is important, I think, for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and coaches and consultants out there. What's a fear you finally stopped listening to that you're so glad you did? Because you had to embrace some change and accept some things that you couldn't change. But tell me, what's a fear that you stopped listening to and you're so glad you did?
Yeah, I think it would be what I shared already about just entering more spaces that are, I guess, faith category or label.
Right.
And I'm really excited. I know I have this other logo here on my backdrop here of Catalyst 501, and I think
Right.
that leads into it too. And I met someone through Set Ventures, also at a Holy Collisions, and it takes, right, it was 8 minutes of just finding that one thing that captures your attention. And then I met a wonderful person named RJ, who's my business partner in Catalyst 501, and kind of taking the leap of faith also on that. But it's like through the lens of my faith, I'm going to have faith in someone else, but I'm allowed to also find someone that has the same values as me, of my Catholic faith and values. And I think that makes us more powerful together as a team. And what we're doing together is serving nonprofits as they start from scratch, and even the ones who are already existing. We're creating a hub, or just membership, that everyone can work together, and we're all going to grow together. But yeah, it's all for nonprofits. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
No, yeah, thank you so much. And I think you talked about the serenity prayer. There's some things you can
Yeah.
change, some things you cannot, right? And it's
Yep.
just a matter of having the faith to allow those things to happen. But it's so great. I got to meet RJ. What a wonderful, energetic person he is. What a great host. You guys did a great job with your Catalyst 501 open house last week, and I got to experience it. And what was the name of that software that you used?
Yeah, we use a platform called Gatherly, and it allows you to fully have that immersive and experiential, impact. And it goes right hand in hand, of course, with what I'm doing in general for all my clients and 𝘠𝘪𝘴 creative partners. So it's nice and it's full circle, right? And I want to make sure that, right, if we're not showing up genuinely and intentionally in
Right.
building these experiences, whether it's in person or digital or and print, what are we doing, right? And it's got to make sense. It's got to have that story. And you want people to feel that they are empowered to join a community, but also I want you to, of course, grow your business. And that leads to, right, those results that you want.
Right.
But it takes time. I always tell people, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build something really good.
Right.
But
Oh, that's
it's worth it.
fantastic. Well, Laura Leanne, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Guys, if you're listening and you are getting value, and I know I got a ton of value, I've got a page full of notes from my conversation here with Laura Leanne. If you're interested in connecting with Laura Leanne, we're going to put her links to all of her social media plus to her website in the show notes. But here's one thing I want you to do. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you comment. Let us know what you got out of the interview. If you have a question for Laura Leanne, put it in the comments. We'll make sure I will track her down and make sure we get an answer for you. If you have a question for Why Not Leadership and the Lead Different podcast, put it in there. Share this podcast with your friends. That's the best way that you can help us get the word out about Laura Leanne Creative Partners, about Why Not Leadership, and about leading different, which is so important in today's age when we've got 5 different generations in the workforce. We've got so many different opportunities. I think leading different is going to be the key to being a better leader in 2025 and beyond. Laura Leanne, thank you for being a different leader, and thank you for being on the show. What do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much, Laura Leanne, and we will see you all back on another episode of the Lead Different podcast. Have a great rest of your week.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.